In order to save its life, a mother puts her illegitimate baby boy into a boat made of reeds and set him adrift on the local river until he is discovered by someone who rescues the boy and raises him, and giving him the name Moses. Moses is the best known from the story in the biblical book of Exodus and Quran as the lawgiver who met God face to face on the Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments after leading his people in Hebrew out of bondage in Egypt and to the promised land of Canaan. In this 19th century painting, Lawrence R. Matadima depicts the Pharaoh after losing his firstborn son to be the final plague described in Exodus. The Egyptian king is the principal villain of the Exodus story. Unlike the Pharaoh who knew Joseph, the Pharaoh of Moses is cruel and vindictive. When Moses asks him to release the Israelites, Pharaoh makes the slave work harder, depriving them of the straw to make sun-dried mud bricks, even though the daily quota of finished bricks must remain the same. Join us. Today we will investigate and try to find who is the Pharaoh challenge Moses.
I'm not negotiating anymore.
The identity of the Pharaoh in the Moses story has been much debated, but many scholars are inclined to accept that Exodus has the King Ramses II in mind. The Bible confirms that the Israelites were to build supply cities, Pithom and Ramesses for Pharaoh. Egyptian records confirm that the king of the 19th dynasty launched the major military program in the Levant. As part of his effort, King Seti I built the new garrison city, which is his successor, Ramses II, later called Pi-Ramesses. Ramses II also built a second city dedicated to his personal patron, Atum, called Per Atum. This story was the first written during the first millennium BCE. Perhaps the answer might be simple. The Trendans simply did not know the names of any Bronze Age Pharaoh. Until today, the identity of the Pharaoh in the Moses story has been much debated, but many scholars are inclined to accept that the Exodus has a King Ramses II in mind. Are you really convinced that the cruel and vindictive Pharaoh who challenged Moses in their time is the great Pharaoh Ramses II? Let's take a look at the great Ramses life biology.
Ramses II, commonly referred to as Ramses the Great or the Great Ancestor, was the third Egyptian pharaoh of the 19th dynasty. Ramses II is celebrated as one of the greatest pharaohs in ancient Egyptian history. Ramses II ascended to the throne in his late teens after his father's death. He was engaged in several military campaigns early in his reign in an effort to retrieve territories held by the Nubians and the Hittites. After defeating Sheridan sea pirates in a naval battle near the mouth of the River Nile, Ramses II launched his first campaign into Canaan. By the fourth year of his reign, Ramses captured the Hittite vassal state of Amurru. The following year, Ramses II sought to expand Egypt's frontiers into modern-day Syria at the Battle of Kadesh. He ordered tens of thousands of soldiers to modern-day Lebanon, Syria, Israel and Palestine, which then belonged to a more substantial enemy than he had ever faced, the Hittite Empire. The Egyptian armies were ambushed and outnumbered at Kadesh, but the pharaoh and his armies stalemated the army and returned home as heroes. Ramses II decorated many monuments with inscriptions describing the campaign and battle as an unprecedented victory. A few years later he returned in a third Syrian campaign. Ramses II split his army into two forces. He led one force into Jerusalem and Jericho, and the second force was led by his firstborn son, Amun-her-Kepesheth, the son of Ramses' first wife, Nefertari. By the 10th year of his reign he returned to Hittite territory once again and laid siege to towns in Retenu and Tunip in Naharin. Neither side could decisively defeat the other in battle, eventually leading to a proposed peace treaty with the Hittite king of Kadesh, Hattusili III. The peace treaty between the Egyptian and Hittite empires was recorded both in Egyptian hieroglyphics and Akkadian, in cuneiform script. Together they make up the oldest peace treaty in world history. He restored traditional Egyptian religious culture, before Amenhotep IV changed it into something closer to a monotheistic religion, where the sun god Aten was worshipped over all other gods. After reigning for 30 years, Ramses II celebrated a jubilee called the Sed Festival, and was ritually transformed into a god. He had brought peace, solidified Egyptian borders, and built many monuments across his empire. Ramses II had made Egypt rich during his 66-year reign, and by the time of his death, aged around 90 years, he had outlived many of his wives and supposed 100 sons and daughters. Ramses II was originally buried in the Valley of the Kings, but was moved several times and is located today in Cairo's Egyptian Museum.
Welcome to Supreme Mystery Code. The History Channel will blow your mind. Our mission is to make learning history exciting for all age groups. Join us. Let's all explore and investigate the hidden secret from the past. Since this earth was created, there have been many mysterious things, events, and hidden treasure which have no proper explanation. Like ancient alien explore the controversial theory that the extraterrestrial have visited the earth for millions of years.